We're welcoming Dr. Kirell Benzi, a data artist, public speaker, and AI researcher. His work revolves around the creation of aesthetic experiences that inspire, educate, and empower large audiences using state-of-the-art technology. Through a hypnotic visual semantic, he tries to demonstrate that algorithms have a soul and that we can create positive emotions from complexity using methods that come straight from scientific research. In his talk today, he'll be speaking to us about building complex experiences without coding. With that, I'll hand the floor over to our speaker.
I hope that you can hear me well, and I'm really sorry I couldn't really attend. I planned to come here. I had my tickets, but I had to cancel the last moment. So I'm really happy to join virtually, and hopefully we can make a cool session. Everything that has been said before, I 100% agree. I'm a data artist. So, my job is to create, hopefully, aesthetically pleasing visuals. And I just want to start with what has been said before about the difference between data viz and data art, knowing that when you do data viz, you are to be the most efficient at communicating information. Whereas when you do data art, maybe what you would like to put first is emotion, right? And something that is also that resonated with me before is that if you are making a data art piece, half of the value of the art piece comes from the explanations, from the data itself. Because for the first time in art history, I would say, it's not purely a subjective point of view of the artist, because you can always claim that your transformation, if it's not too crazy, is backed by data, whatever that means. You have a more objective, basically, interpretation of the piece. So yeah, I just wanted to go about this because I think it's really important to talk about data art in general. So quickly about me, I have my own data art studio, and I also am a scientist at EPFL, which is the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. I work in AI. Everyone works in AI, right? But I'm working in like autonomous vehicles and also large-scale visualization of very. You'll see some examples. I'm a bit frustrated because I would love to talk hours about each of the pieces, but it's just there to illustrate what type of work that I do. I usually like to visualize big data, like large-scale data sets with like hundreds of thousands of points or more. For instance, here what you see is email visualization of a company. So you have all the emails that have been exchanged between all the employees just over one day, was for a bank. So you have 100,000 emails that are being exchanged for just one day. And here we wanted to visualize the connections between the different basically units of the company. That they are colored differently from the front office, the back office, the tech, the HR management, and so forth. Some other type of work that I do, I started with networks, but I really try to expand into other realms, because I did my PhD on networks, so it was easy for me to make the jump from studying and doing the math, but also finding a way to communicate it with others. And this is how I really started, because people were asking me what I was doing, and I didn't really have any kind of visuals to show them. So this is, I went quickly on the data viz route, but then I had something that was more appealing to me, was to go more artistic, crazier, less text, and more about the description that comes alongside the piece that you can put in, hopefully, in a museum, like this one, for instance, which is in Lausanne right now. And this is about the circadian rhythms, 3 different individuals over 8 days, and each concentric circle, you can read it as a clock, 24-hour clock. So of course, at the center, on the top, you have it's around midnight. So you see people are sleeping, getting awake, and they have the height of the bar and the color depend on the heart rate and the physical activity. And for the sleep pattern, it depends whether you have micro, awakening, like if you don't have a good sleep or not. So I'm going very quickly about this, because the talk is not about my work in data art. It's more about how can you create this kind of stuff on your own without coding. Just the last picture. This is what I mean by large-scale visualization lab. It's a 7-meter diameter, 360 screen, 6 projectors blended together in 3D, which means you have 60 frames per second per eye. It's a very, very difficult and complex setup, and we try to create things that have never been done before here. And all of them, all the experience that we do are based on cultural heritage. So very high-res scans of pyramids, for instance, or data-driven stuff that comes directly from the university, basically. So the problem we have here is that, I mean, maybe you like me, data viz or data art, we have a limited amount of time. And as Nadia said, most of my times I'm, overspending. Basically the budget is not enough because we are trying to find the correct or the most appealing visuals. So quickly it appeared to me that it would be interesting to have a way to reuse some of the components. And it's very difficult if you work in data viz, custom data viz, not like pre-dashboard. It's very difficult to reuse the work because it's always tied to a data set. And so you would like to create your own small reusable blocks so that you can, build on it. And then over time, when you create more and more projects, well, you have many blocks available, and you can just, connect them and pipe them. And you would have some of the data processing done, some of the, things with particles that you play with, some charts that you also created. And so my quest was about finding the right platform to create this kind of blocks and connect them together. And the last point here is skills. I mean, it's very difficult to know everything about graphics design and data viz and storytelling and interactivity. I mean, no one can do it all. So it's also a way interesting to rely on the skills of other people and contribute to this global community. So with that in mind, I would like to introduce this tool called Cables, and you can find it at Cables.gl. And it's been created by a German studio, Undev, and they have been at it for the past 7 years. It's free, everyone can join. And without further ado, let me just describe what Cables is. And as now we are very lazy, we don't do our slides anymore. So I just asked ChatGPT to give the description for me. Cables.gl is a free, versatile web platform for creative interactive graphics, animations, and visualizations, which is not more. We can also create AI stuff, web audio, but let's say it's good enough for ChatGPT. It is designed to be accessible to both beginners and experienced users with a node-based visual programming interface that allows users to create complex visuals without writing any code. So the cool thing is, if you don't know how to code, you can reuse all of the blocks, I mean thousands that are already there. If you know how to code, you can also create your own and expand the library, create your own specific graphics and so forth. So what does it look like in practice? When you go to the Cables page, you register, you would find some of the top projects, per day, per month, per year. And as you can see already, this is like a screenshot of the top projects. It's not really made, Cables was not made for data visualization originally. It was really a tool created for the demo scene, people doing generative art, museum installations, thing you would see at parties. But the cool thing is it's a web platform. So over time, when I found this tool, I tried to gradually introduce also more data viz tools. And what I like about this platform is that you can mix both in the same experience. And I will show examples of that. So I would like to start with this very simple bar chart, the most boring bar chart you can find. But I would like to show how it looks like on the, so let me maybe show it live if you can see my screen. That's the good perks of being online, actually. You see, so this is a bar chart that is reacting. Hopefully you can see this well and on my mouse. And if I click, something is happening. This is the code, which is basically code blocks that we piped together. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this eCharts library. I will just talk about it. It's one of the most, actually very well-made data viz library. Was originally created by Baidu, and it was now given to the Apache Foundation. And with basically one configuration object, you can create more than 150 different charts. So here we just have this configuration that we pipe to this node. And notice what I like about this tool is we have this flow mode, so that when I click, you can actually, I don't know if you can see this, but it's, lighting up. So you can track in your application all the events that are happening. So you see, so far so good. You don't need to code, and you can already create an interactive chart. Great. Now, we have more complex examples, but just to come back on the eCharts library, this is basically all the charts you can create. in Cables, it's a web platform. We also have D3, so I have many nodes that rely on D3 for all the math, all the color. We have P5. Nadia also talked about this. It's also included. Basically, we have more than, I think, 50 libraries. This is the list of all the libraries that are already built in. And here is just a screenshot of the nodes because I know how to program a bit, that I also coded for myself, right? And then that we can share with the community. It's a collaborative platform. It's like Google Docs. You can collaborate on the same patch. It's called a patch, like a project. You can share operators, blocks that you create by team. You have permissions, private, public, and so forth. And so you see, I basically have extended over time. I have more than 160 different code blocks, so that when I create new projects, then I can reuse things. Let me show you now another more complex example, which is actually based on D3. So I want to, it's a data viz conference, so I try to orient the talk, so I show you data viz stuff. But for instance, this one is pretty interesting. It's maybe you heard about this D3 like node, like network, basically visualization. And what I'm trying to do, it's that to basically integrate it in 2D and 3D. So you can have the 2D plot, you can show the edges, you see that all the nodes are reactive. So you could say, when I click, something happens, a text, opening a URL, playing a video, playing a sound. Very easy. You have this, everything is reactive. It's here, like basically this small UI controls the whole project. And what I like about this is that, we also ported this in 3D because by essence, Cables is a WebGL basically engine. So it likes to do something in 3D, but we can add the 2D. So it's more like everything has to be 3D, but it doesn't matter for us. We can just use the 2-dimension, have it flat. Don't use a camera if we don't need to. So yeah, it's a D3 binding. So we can use any function that exists in D3 inside of Cables. Let's continue. Another plot that you may use. I try to show more complex visuals. Circle packing, it's something that is very common to show distribution of hierarchical trees. And what I like about this example is something that appeared to me, and because I do data art, that this, if you just have a white background, it looks like a standard data viz. But what if, you see, I can change it's a data set on Brazil and census data, but doesn't really matter here. What matters is that I can on the fly, decide to only show part of the hierarchy. But what I like about this is, imagine now you are about to create an experience more towards data art, something more immersive, because that's the whole point of the talk, complex, more immersive experiences. Then I like to be able to use the 3D space, like the Z space, to, for instance, to open some kind of view on click, have the data being really move aside so that you have more space here to tell the story on the right, for instance. And it would be actually quite difficult to do this in D3 if you know how to of these tools, because it's a 2D context. So you cannot really use the 3D, the third dimension. I know some data viz purist in the room would say, we'll never use the third dimension because it skews the data, and which is actually true. But here we are more talking about some kind of interactive experience and data art. So we can say that we put less constraints on the purity of the data viz principles. But I agree, if you want to go for something very practical and legible, only use the 2 dimensions. But yeah, just wanted to show you that everything is reactive. And this, there's no code involved, right? No nodes have been done for you. So, okay. This was like, I'm trying to bait you, say, you want to try it, but okay, these are like toy examples. They're just simple charts that you could create with the other context. So what now I would like to show you a more, I would say, a bit more advanced project, and then a very complex project that I did just to show you the range of possibilities with this tool. So the first one I want to talk about is it's a video here, but because it's a live interactive project, we can actually show it live. Hopefully it works well. Otherwise, you can find it on my YouTube channel. I'll give a link at the end. So this is the emails that I was talking about. I did this for a client, and they wanted two things: the first, a static image, the plot that you saw, to print and to put in their offices as a, for to have a VIP client, so that because what they liked about the idea is that it's data art, so this is their story. When everyone asks, oh, what is it? Why do you have an art piece in your showroom or in your VIP room? Well, it's about our company. This is how we exchange and we talk and all the different. So they basically have the story, and this is why they like the art, because it relates to them. So that, I think, one of the key points for why people would like data art. And why would they like data art over data viz is that because it's more intriguing, and it can also fit more as an art piece in its own, whereas data viz needs to be a more legend, and it's more to explain. So I think there is a nice spot for the two to cohabit, basically. So here we have this interactive sphere. Notice that everything has been anonymized, and we remove all the labels and everything because this is the online version, and they have one especially for you. But what you see here is basically two sphere. And you see this is live, like all the links that you see are emails that have been basically exchanged from the outside world on the outside sphere to the company, which is the inside sphere with the different units, basically. So I don't know, I think it was quite interesting for me to create this project, because I think it was one of the first time I actually saw like a live visualization. It was quite, as you can maybe imagine, difficult to find, like, to code this, even though it's pre-made blocks, to find the right data. It's actually quite heavy. Compress the data so we can send it online. And here we have a small, configuration panel, just to be able to play with the opacity, the speed, the time slices. If you want to slice, you see it goes much faster, more or less, bigger. So if you put too many, of course, it starts to get very difficult to read. But I like to play with the opacity, right? Or you only see, for instance, the threats, which was the whole job was about cybersecurity. So they wanted to illustrate that if you receive, so suspicious attachment, then you can compromise the whole. So this is from their basically firewall and what they block and to whom each threat is sent to. And you can also play some different color maps and see that. So yeah, it's a bit too much like this. So yeah, this is one example of what you could do with this tool, and have it interactive. So what they liked about it is that they could play with this, filter by some specific unit, have some of the details. You're there. And this is just one day of data, right? So, but you can imagine if you now plug this dashboard to a live feed, or every day, basically you have an export of the data, and have this kind of overview, like in the movies, right? You see they have this a very big screen, and they say, oh, we received the threat, a hacker is in. You get the gist, I hope. So yeah, this was I would say a more complex example. But I have an even more complex examples to show you, which is this one is one of the latest job that I did. I did this for Google for a fashion show. And let me explain, because it's data driven, right? So we have 1,200 brands, and they wanted to have a visualization of their presence on the web. It means when you type this brand on Google, what types of result do you get? And then we try to classify so that these results we're using machine learning. So we have like 7 main categories for all the brands. Are we more talking about partnerships, about opening new stores, about sustainability, financial news, all of these kinds of topic, try to basically have a signature for each brand, and also like a very deep analytics. So just to give you an idea, this was 10 million news that we extracted. And there are 5 different neural networks involved to create the final visuals. One to, once you get the data, you have to detect the language. Then you have to, because we have results in Polish, in Turkish, in Chinese, you have to translate that to English so we can run some sentiment analysis, remove the bad news because they didn't want any bad news. And then once you have this, you need to be able to classify, so to find these 7 big topics. And then when you have them, these topics, you need to create another network to embed, to have this basically projection of all the brand into a 2 or 3D space here. And from there, now we use that as attractors and forces to create the final visual. So it's a very complex project. I could spend an hour on it, but just to show there is a story behind the visuals. And you would see at the beginning, this is a cube, because they wanted to have a cube of all the brands linked together, basically because they sell the same type of product, or because they are operating their headquarters in the same country. So it's a two-stage visualization, basically showcasing the AI signature of the brand. Hopefully, I'll put the video. Hopefully, it works for you. So yeah, I'm skipping over it, but hopefully you see what I meant by having this distribution of colors, basically, for each company. What was difficult here is to create a unique signature for 1,000 brand. So it had to be data driven in a way, otherwise we could not have come up with some and had some randomness and have some noise, everything that Nadia talked about to make it hopefully interesting, but data driven, so that if I see this brand, I know that they talk about sustainability because I see that it's green here, but they have more about their events and shows as more dominant on the web, basically. So how do you go from there? This is just to give you an idea of what the whole project was about, in terms of code and blocks and everything. You have subblocks. So it was a complex job. Let's not be kid ourselves. But the cool thing about this job, it was not only a web page, but it was also a physical experience that was shown in Milan for the Fashion Week. And what you see here on the screen is actually the same kind of experience with the projection mapping that we had to sort and fix. And all the columns that you see there are also interactive. So it means that people could play with their iPads, type their brand, and have everything react and connect together. So you can really go, from the data viz, data art to physical installation with the same tool, which I found really fascinating. So to give you an idea, because it doesn't really show that way, but I'm not very tall, but I mean, the cube was more than 2.5 meters tall, and it weighs 3 tons, 1.5 tons for the structure and 1.5 tons for the LED panels. So it was really a really big installation. And it's still, if you think about it, it's a bit crazy, but it's still a website basically running on it. So what are the good steps? Hopefully you are motivated and you want to learn more about this. How do you learn? Well, easy. You can go on the Cables.gl website, and you have on the Learn tab, you have many videos here on their YouTube channel. You have the Discord every week. Every Wednesday, we have a meetup. Beginners are welcome. Very chill. You can just drop your questions and people will answer. There's always people, 10 people every week. If you are looking for more data viz oriented content, data art, data viz, you can also check my channel because I try to see make videos about color mapping, bar charts, and forget the crazy faces. But people need to click on YouTube, so apparently you have to make crazy faces. I also show you how can you actually run Python, like a real Python, inside of Cables without any kind of other local Python installed. And how you can, for instance, control your visualization with your mobile. You just need to play with it and it works. Web scraping, like all of these kind of tutorials that I try to run, and in between data viz and in data art. I hope that you liked it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello, thank you. Oh, my name is Shirley. Thank you so much for the presentation. I love your work. I think one of the, wait, did you finish talking?
No, you're fine.
Oh, okay.
I was going to open the floor for questions, but you
Sorry,
were very excited.
I have a burning question. One of the things that I'm really hesitant about with libraries and frameworks that are built, that are more kind of like a higher abstraction, is that I just don't get as much control over exactly the visuals I want to build. So then I end up wanting to just go straight into WebGL. And so it was really amazing seeing what you created with Cables.gl, but then like, do you still, what is the balance between being able to not code and create these amazing visuals, but is there a style that, sorry, the question I'm trying to ask is, I think certain libraries and frameworks tend to start having a certain style associated with it. And is that something that Cables.gl might have also?
It's a very good point. So I would say it will force you to create some kind of 3D WebGL stuff, and not necessarily 2D, but as I said before, D3 is included, P5 is, nothing stops you from, I code all the time. If you know how to code and you have to go for a specific look, you can definitely do it. It doesn't stop you. What it provides you is a way to abstract, basically to have this visual editor and have blocks. But the blocks could be a SVG chart, right? So that you're not, and you can code it and you can call some other libraries. I see that as a way to package and have micro APIs or micro blocks that you can pipe together in a way. But if you know, because you know how to code this, definitely you can mix both worlds and you're not necessarily limited. But it's true that you have to think of every time that I do something to package it into a reusable block instead of just doing a one-off with a very like a 2,000 line of code JavaScript file. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great. I think we can take one more question and then we'll move to our next speaker. Anyone else? Yes, over here in the front.
Does this one work? Oh, cool. So you work with really big. Oh yeah, I'm Giacomo, by the way. Yeah. Hello. You work with really big data sets. Is it difficult ways to like trust the patterns that you find in the data and to be able to really check that certain things are that you see in these visuals are real, or they're not just sort of I guess you have to really trust the data that you're working with. I wasn't sure what the Google data was, but if that was sort of like some was it aggregated news? Is it sort of quite hard to know exactly how to interpret patterns that you find in that?
So yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, at some point we rely on aggregation of data, and you have a lot of bias from the algorithms that we use, right? So if you have a projection like a UMAP or TSNE, it's one projection, it could be many. But the goal here, I mean, it's based on data. So we made sure, as a scientist, I really made sure that the proportion, basically the percentage of the particles that you see is proportional to the topics that we found. Of course, these topics, are they very accurate? Well, we use some large language model like the ChatGPT, was not ChatGPT, but to basically estimate what each news is talking about. So this also depends on the algorithm that we use and so forth. So you can always go down the rabbit hole of how precise your data is, but when you are talking about 10 million points, anyways, it's always going to be the case. But keep in mind that this was it was a data art project. So we also have some leeway, it has to represent the global picture, but it doesn't have to be extremely, extremely precise as you would do for a data viz about the COVID death, right? So we had a bit of more freedom in the visual. So I think it was okay, but yeah, it's a great point.
All right. With that, we'll go ahead and we'll say farewell. Thank you so much for joining us virtually. We're glad you could dial in.
Okay.